Inside this building are the headquarters of AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They would not let us photograph inside their headquarters. AIPAC says it is the spearhead for support for Israel here in Washington. It is not a political action committee. It does not make campaign contributions. But the clout of AIPAC here on Capitol Hill is legendary.
Practically every congressman and senator says his prayers to the AIPAC lobby. No, they've done an enormous job of corrupting the American democratic process.
George Ball was #2 in the State Department under Presidents Kennedy and Johnson, and he has never been reluctant to criticize the pro-Israel lobby.
It's the most effective lobby in the United States today, and I would put that ahead of the National Rifle Association.
What's wrong with picking a candidate to support on the basis of the way that he has voted? Isn't that the American way?
I think it's a caricature of the American way.
The word power, when it's used for AIPAC, is a myth. It's baloney. AIPAC is powerful only because the American people are behind Israel.
Rabbi Israel Miller is the vice president of AIPAC.
AIPAC is not anti-Chafee.
No, AIPAC has put on the public record his votes on some of the issues that concern us, but we deal with a very politically aware and sophisticated group of people, the pro-Israel community, and they make up their own minds. You know, if we were
You don't direct them?
We do not direct them.
Let me read to you a memo, an AIPAC memo, November 3rd, 1987. Senate race. Lieutenant Governor Richard Leach, Democrat, Rhode Island, is running against incumbent Senator John Chafee, Republican. Leach, who is Jewish, has a very good chance. Our problem is that the pro-Israel community is not excited and as forthcoming as they should be. We need to put the word out on this race, emphasizing Chafee's poor record. The focus should be to generate interest for a terrific candidate to replace a poor supporter of our issue. See attached voting record and Marty's analysis. It's an AIPAC memo.
Who signed it? I don't recognize it as an AIPAC memo.
Rabbi Miller continued.
In this case, I think all that was being said was that Leach has a chance against an incumbent senator.
Who has a poor record. And we got to get the word out.
His record is not as poor as some other senators.
Shortly after that interview, AIPAC confirmed that the memo was in fact written by a former AIPAC political staffer. But they insisted she was a low-level employee and that her memo did not reflect AIPAC policy. And that's important for AIPAC because under U.S. federal election regulations, if it were shown that pro-Israel PACs were working in conjunction with AIPAC or were coordinated by AIPAC, that would arguably be a violation of the law. Well, shortly before this broadcast, 60 Minutes received in the mail from an anonymous sender another memo written by a high-level AIPAC official, Liz Schreier, in which she urged a colleague to make certain that several pro-Israel PACs around the country funnel cash contributions to a handful of senatorial candidates. AIPAC officials acknowledged to us the memo was indeed an AIPAC document, but they declined to answer any questions about it. They said in a statement that despite appearances to the contrary, AIPAC does not have the power to direct fundraising decisions. Now, who are other senatorial candidates in current races with what pro-Israel PACs call poor records on Israel?
Well, for instance, this year, many pro-Israel PACs are trying to defeat incumbent Senator Chick Hecht of Nevada, even though he is Jewish, because he, too, did not follow the AIPAC line on weapon sales to the Arabs. And there are many who charge that AIPAC, with its sights set only on Israel, is just too demanding of U.S. politicians.
We aren't demanding of U.S. politicians. We have a concern about Israel, which is understandable, particularly in this generation. Had you and I been in certain parts of Europe, we would have walked to Auschwitz together. We're very sensitive about the security, about the future of Israel, and support of Israel means that we feel that it is in the interest not merely of Israel, but also in the interest of the United States. Israel is a strategic ally of the United States.
In recent years, AIPAC and the pro-Israel PACs have helped defeat, among others, Congressman Paul Findlay and Pete McCloskey, Senators Harrison Schmitt of New Mexico, Walter Huddleston of Kentucky, and Chuck Percy of Illinois. Like Senator Chafee, Percy, too, came out in favor of that sale of AWACS to the Saudis.
I finally reached the stage where, as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I saw our foreign policy totally turned around. With a Muslim world, 800 million people looking askance at the United States of America, what is happening? Who is running the foreign policy? Can Israel and the Prime Minister have more power than the entire Senate of the United States or the President of the United States? And that, to me, I simply said, Enough is enough.
That particular AWAC sale to Saudi Arabia did manage to pass the Congress. And in 1984, pro-Israel PACs and other individuals spent millions to unseat the powerful Senator Percy.
Let me just quote to you the words of the executive director of AIPAC, Tom Dyer. After the defeat of Chuck Percy a few years back, he said to a Jewish group in Toronto, quote, "All the Jews in America from coast to coast gathered to oust Percy. And the American politicians, those who hold public positions now, and those who aspired, got the message."
It was an unfelicitous expression of that which Tom felt in his enthusiasm and in his zeal. I think if he had it to say all over again, he would have put it altogether differently.
Rabbi Miller, about a year ago, the New York Times wrote, AIPAC has become a major force in shaping U.S. policy in the Middle East. Organization has gained the power to influence the presidential candidate's choice of staff, to block practically any arms sale to an Arab country, and to serve as a catalyst for intimate military relations between the Pentagon and the Israel army. How did AIPAC become so powerful?
Again, I'll say that that's very flattering, but it's a myth. It's just not so. The American people support Israel, and therefore Congress votes as it does.
One of Israel's staunchest supporters is Senator Daniel Inouye of Hawaii, who says that AIPAC has nothing to do with his feelings about Israel.
If I can help Israel help herself in every instance, I'd do so. I'm also convinced it's in our national interest. I've yet to see any country in that part of the world that is as reliable as far as our strategic requirements are concerned as Israel is.
I don't believe it's an ally at all. We have no alliance with it. I mean, they insist on total freedom of action, and they insist on our subsidizing their total freedom of action.
The amount of that subsidy is remarkable and a testament to AIPAC's clout on Capitol Hill. Altogether, Israel gets more than $3 billion a year in assistance from the United States.
Sometimes the votes go through without a single debate involving billions of dollars. You couldn't spend that kind of money in this country without a huge debate going on. But a foreign government gets this money without debate because simply it's just organized to get it.
Why does Israel get more aid, more U.S. aid, than any other country in the world? $700 per Israeli per year, as opposed to $50 per Egyptian per year, as opposed to $2 per African per year.
None of this money goes for the $700, goes to raise the living standard of Israeli people. This is for their defense. This is for the security of Israel. If Israel were destabilized, the Arabs, with all of their petrodollars and with all of their weapons, would just sweep Israel into the sea.
Is there a possibility of a backlash if Israel is perceived as too powerful in the halls of government here in Washington?
There's always this possibility if people begin to believe that little Israel is calling the shots. And I'm certain Americans would resent that. They won't want any country, big or small, to be calling the shots in the Congress of the United States. But I don't think that AIPAC is calling the shots as far as I'm concerned.
Is it common sense or cowardice on the part of senators who just don't want to talk about this?
Oh, I would say the senators would say it's just being practical.
This past week, 3 major Jewish organizations took issue with AIPAC. The leaders of the American Jewish Committee, the American Jewish Congress, and the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith asserted in a letter to the president of AIPAC that AIPAC does not speak by the consensus of the organized Jewish community. And in a CBS News poll of 1,530 American adults 2 weeks ago, we asked, do you think that in order to preserve the security of Israel, the U.S. should give Israel more aid than it gives any other country? 13% said yes, 72% said no, 15% said they don't know.
When Representative Ilhan Omar suggested U.S. politicians are influenced by financial pressure from the American Israel lobby AIPAC, she was smeared by Democrats and Republicans as anti-Semitic. The truth is, she wasn't being anti-Semitic, she was stating a fact. Here's 5 times AIPAC insiders got caught admitting how they control American politics with money. Number 1. Leaked memos. It's important to understand that even though AIPAC spends millions on lobbying Congress, it does not contribute directly to political campaign contributions. It would be illegal, but AIPAC does influence campaign contributions indirectly, like all powerful lobbies, through the organization and bundling of individual donations from AIPAC members, and dozens of pro-Israel PACs, who often take cues from AIPAC, which we know from leaked documents sent to the Washington Post and 60 Minutes.
It's an AIPAC memo.
I don't recognize it as an AIPAC memo.
AIPAC later confirmed the documents were real. They didn't reveal anything illegal, but clearly linked AIPAC with the otherwise unaffiliated pro-Israel PACs. Because AIPAC is only indirectly involved in campaign contributions, it's hard to determine exactly how much campaign money they're responsible for, but we know the amount is significant. Former Congressman Brian Baird explains, quote, "Any member of Congress knows that AIPAC is associated indirectly with significant amounts of campaign spending if you're with them, and significant amounts against you if you're not." Former AIPAC Director Steve Rosen confirmed AIPAC's powerful grasp on Congress when he told The New Yorker, in 24 hours, AIPAC could have the signatures of 70 senators on a table napkin. Number 2. Got the message?
The clout of AIPAC here on Capitol Hill is legendary.
In recent years, AIPAC and the pro-Israel PACs have helped defeat, among others, Congressman Paul Findlay and Pete McCloskey, Harrison Schmidt of New Mexico, Walter Huddleston of Kentucky, and Chuck Percy of Illinois.
As chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I saw our foreign policy totally turned around. Who is running the foreign policy? Can Israel and the Prime Minister have more power than the entire Senate of the United States or the President of the United States? And that, to me, I simply said, enough is enough.
When Senator Percy went against the wishes of AIPAC, large sums of money from pro-Israel PACs went to his challenger. One major contributor and council member of AIPAC, who would later be convicted for illegal campaign contributions, spent over $1 million on anti-Percy ads. Percy lost his seat, and then executive director of AIPAC, Tom Dine, made crystal clear that AIPAC was responsible when he said,
Quote, "All the Jews in America from coast to coast gathered to oust Percy. And the American politicians, those who hold public positions now, and those who aspire, got the message."
I think if he had it to say all over again, he would have put it altogether differently.
Number 3. Caught on tape. In 1992, then AIPAC President David Steiner was caught on tape bragging that he, quote, cut a deal with the George H.W. Bush White House to give Israel $10 billion in loans, $3 billion in military aid, and, quote, almost $1 billion in other goodies that people don't even know about.
And during the current fiscal year alone, and despite our own economic problems, the United States provided Israel with more than $4 billion, nearly $1,000 for every Israeli man, woman, and child.
When Bush actually stood up against the lobby and delayed giving Israel the $10 billion loan guarantees in an attempt to force Israel to enter a peace conference with the Palestinians, AIPAC fought back.
I'm up against some powerful political forces.
The President of the United States described himself as one lonely little guy compared to the power of the Israel lobby.
I heard today there were something like 1,000 lobbyists on the Hill working the other side of the question. We got one lonely little guy down here doing it.
Although Bush was successful in getting Israel to enter the peace conference, Bush's Jewish backing took a nosedive, and AIPAC's President Steiner was recorded saying he helped raise millions of dollars for the candidate who would go on to replace Bush, Bill Clinton. Ever since Clinton defeated Bush Sr., no American president has ever challenged the billions of dollars we give Israel in foreign aid every year, despite Israel's consistent violation of international law.
Soldiers opened fire, killing more than 50 Palestinians, including 8 children.
Number 4. Hidden cameras. The Lobby USA is an Al Jazeera documentary reportedly suppressed by the pro-Israel lobby until eventually leaking online in 2018. The film follows a reporter with hidden cameras going undercover into pro-Israel groups. In one scene, David Ox, whose organization works closely with AIPAC, tells the undercover reporter about an AIPAC group fundraiser. It's for Congressman Anthony Brown, and the group plans to essentially pay the congressman to kill the Iran deal.
This is direct spending. Brown's going to use that 30 grand to do ad campaigns. So we want the Jewish community to go face to face in a small environment, 50, 30, 40 people, and say, this is what's important to us. We wanted to make sure if we give you money that you're going to enforce the Iran deal. That way, when they need something from him or her, like the Iran deal, they can quickly mobilize and say, look, we'll give you 30 grand. They actually impact it.
Number 5, The Whistleblower.
I worked at AIPAC. I know how they operate.
MJ Rosenberg worked at AIPAC for 6 years and spent 15 years on Capitol Hill. So if anybody knows about AIPAC's influence in Washington, it's him.
Yes, most of the Jews in Congress care about Israel. Most Jews do. But that care would likely lead them to support dovish positions and not mindless hawkishness, were it not for the lobby and the financial benefits of staying in its good graces. Honestly, can anyone believe Elizabeth Warren really believed that the Gaza war was a good idea? Or any of the other big-time progressive types who supported it, or at the very least refused to condemn it?
You know, Israel invaded Gaza today. We just want to get your thoughts on that. Just a quick question.
These are people who always favor diplomacy over war. Why would they do that? Their position on this issue of war and peace is dictated by their determination to please AIPAC donors.
Of course, it's not just AIPAC. Everything that comes before Congress is about the money. That is the issue Congresswoman Omar and so many others are trying to address. Those who smear critics of AIPAC as anti-Semitic are trying to silence honest, rational debate about American foreign policy in the Middle East. AIPAC has managed to stifle that debate for decades now, and enough is enough.
In fact, in yesterday's Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin referred to me as anti-Semitic. Well, now they're calling Jews who disagree with Israel anti-Semitic. Back when I first started AIPAC, my boss warned me not to ever talk about AIPAC activities outside the lobby. He wrote, "A lobby is a night flower. It thrives in the dark and shrivels up in the sunlight." I think that may be happening now thanks to all our efforts. If it does, not only the United States, but Israel, the Palestinians, and the world will be better off. This night flower needs crushing.